Lecture for the day is on ego defenses. Ego defenses are defenses used by the ego in order to accomplish its primary tasks of creating a compromise between the superego and the ill, creating a compromise between the inner demands and the outer reality, enhancing the cause of survival, enhancing the cause of survival of the species. So the ego has its tasks, these tasks that we have listed out: survival of the self, survival of the species, optimization of pleasure, optimization of self-development, coordination between the inside and the outside. And all these goals of the ego are accomplished by the ego in various ways. And the primary tool that the ego has to accomplish its goals is to undertake certain psychological activities which we call as defenses. Let us go deeper into it. Defense is a psychological activity that the ego uses to accomplish its goals, be it the goal of survival of the self, survival of the species, development of the self, optimization of pleasure, or any other such activity, any other such goal of the ego. Most common goal of the ego for which ego uses the defenses is to avoid unpleasant affect. And what are the most unpleasant effects? The most common unpleasant effects are anxiety, pain, guilt, shame, envy, disintegration, chaos, agitation, irritation, frustration, inferiority, shame. These are the feelings we all wish to avoid, and the ego undertakes psychological actions so that these feelings are kept completely in the unconscious or as much as possible in the unconscious. And these psychological actions undertaken by the ego are called as ego defenses. So the defense is essentially a psychological action against unpleasant affect coming up to consciousness, in addition to many other goals. So there can be many goals for which defenses are used, but the most common goal is avoidance of unpleasant affect. And the most common unpleasant effects are, I listed out a moment ago. Affects like fear, sadness, guilt, shame, envy, inferiority, disintegration, chaos, agitation, irritation, shame. Ego uses this psychological actions that we call ego defenses for various purposes. Most common, avoidance of unpleasant effect. And these ego defenses are actions undertaken by the ego in the conscious mind and also in the unconscious mind. We saw in Freud's structural model that part of the ego is conscious, part of the ego is unconscious. Similarly, the defenses which are used can be used consciously by the conscious mind, in the conscious mind, or in the unconscious mind, where we are unaware that these defenses are being used. It's only when we focus upon, analyze, and we are lucky enough to decode what is happening that we can make out which defenses are being used. Now, what are the defenses that ego uses in the conscious mind and the unconscious mind? Sigmund Freud listed out some defenses. And three common defenses that he listed out were suppression, repression, denial. He listed out others also, but these three were very common. Anna Freud, Sigmund Freud's daughter, developed a full list of ego defenses, and she had a much longer list than Sigmund Freud. And then others following Anna Freud have developed even longer lists of ego defenses. So there are different lists of ego defenses and different definitions of what should be called a defense. What we will do today is we will take a look at some of the most common defenses which are used in the mind by the ego. And we will see it with example how each of the defense can be understood. If you are more interested in the area of defenses, you can go into the different list of defenses and then go into the definitions, the mode of working, and the results of each of the defensive actions in various contexts. Let us start the discussion with our first understanding of what different kind of defenses work in the mind. Let's take them one by one. The first defense is suppression. It is a conscious defense. Let us say you get an idea of surpassing somebody who works along with you, a colleague of yours, who is a very good person, and you get an idea of how you can trap him into something, destroy his reputation in the office, and then go past him and climb up the ladder. And then you feel this is not right, I should not be doing this to my friend or my colleague, he is too good a person. And then you suppress that desire to go there or to trap that man. It's a conscious action. You have done it because of your value system. It's a conscious action. It is suppression. Suppose the same thing happens unconsciously. Your desire to climb up and take that position available is unconscious desire. Then an idea arises that you can trap your colleague into something and remove him from the path. Then the conscience comes in, superego comes in, and then you decide to repress the whole idea. So in that case, you don't even know consciously that this has happened. That is called repression. So repression is an unconscious action, happens completely in the unconscious, and we realize something is repressed only when we psychoanalytically explore ourselves by free association, by dream analysis, by work of art, by slips, or by hypnosis. Third is denial. That denial is a defense, like when you fall sick and you start getting the first feelings, there is a fear of death which arises with many of the sicknesses as they start, and first reaction is to deny that this has happened. Or you get news of somebody's passing away and the first response is denial. That no, maybe the news is not correct, maybe it is somebody else, or maybe it's wrong news. So this is suppression, repression, denial can be used to avoid any unpleasant feeling, maybe sadness, anxiety, guilt, shame, envy, disintegration. Diversion is yet another defense. You go to therapy, and once you come back from the session, you think about everything but your sickness. You don't give time to heal yourself because inside of you is something so disturbing, you don't want to look at it. So the defense of diversion is a very strong defense in all chronic sicknesses. A person puts focus on everything but his own health. That is the defense of diversion. Intellectualization. You pass through a traumatic event. When I ask you what happened, you describe to me the event without any description of the feelings involved in the event. You give me a cognitive description of the event without referring to the feelings that were involved there. Intellectualization. Rationalization. Somebody does something wrong to you, and the natural feeling is to feel angry and seek revenge or seek justice. But if the person is too powerful and the cost of expression of anger or the cost of seeking justice in the real world is too high, you want to let go. So then you say, maybe it was my mistake, he did not do anything wrong. So you accept a smaller tragedy out of the fear of a larger tragedy if you seek redressal by rationalization. Isolation of affect. This can happen when you just stop feeling something in a situation where you used to feel something. Like you go to a movie and you laugh out loudly at a comedy scene. But a time can come in your life when you go to the movie and you see an equally hilarious scene, but you just don't feel like laughing anymore. You have started isolating feelings away because a template has been created. Feelings bring pain. The template is created after repeated disappointments leading to resignation. And these repeated disappointments in relationships or professional situations finally leading to this resignation. You just give up, and then the isolation of affect stops because it's too much to feel. Sublimation. Sublimation is a defense by which something which in its raw form is not socially acceptable is converted into a socially acceptable entity. For example, sadism and torture is not socially acceptable. But if you do it to the enemy of a country to get information out of how they are going to attack you, the same thing is permitted. It's a sublimated use of original sadism. Similarly, Freud gives example of scopophilia, the component instinct of deriving pleasure by looking at something. That gets sublimated into curiosity, which becomes a search for knowledge and is considered to be very noble and highly respected. So the defense of sublimation is used to convert scopophilia, a component instinct of pure eros, into a highly acceptable and respected search for knowledge. Reaction formation. It is a defense which is used to convert, to rather create emotion exactly opposite to the emotion that you are really feeling in the depths of your mind and which is unbearable. For example, somebody receives the news of somebody's death, and he starts laughing. What has happened is, after receiving the news of death of somebody close, the pain is so intensely created that it is unbearable to accept, acknowledge and feel the pain. So what happens is the ego uses the reaction formation defense and converts the pain into laughter. Some people convert anger into laughter. Whenever they feel angry, they start laughing. So you avoid the difficult feelings of anger or pain by going out into laughter. So what is converting them is the reaction formation. Defense of reaction formation to move away from the raw, unbearable feeling. It may just be a mechanism to buy time also, so that the mind gets prepared to deal with the raw feeling, if not completely, then in small installments. So suppression is a conscious defense, repression unconscious defense, denial can be both conscious or unconscious, diversion can be both conscious or unconscious, intellectualization can be both conscious or unconscious, rationalization can be both conscious or unconscious, isolation of affect is unconscious, sublimation is unconscious, reaction formation is unconscious. Some more ego defenses. Splitting. Splitting is you divide something into these two extreme opposites. For example, if there are good and bad parts of me, I don't want to see the bad parts of me. I don't want to accept, it's too painful. So what I do is I split off my whole personality into two, good and bad. I keep the good with myself and put my bad onto somebody else. And then I see that person as a bad person. That is splitting. That we divide into two something and then put the difficult part out of that person. For example, if you have a parent who has a good and a bad part and you don't want to accept the bad part, you split it off and put it onto some other person. Then you see your parent only as all good. This may be true even for a celebrity who you like. You may be a fan of a celebrity and something comes up in the news which says this celebrity also has a dark side. You don't want to accept it, so you split it off and put it on somewhere else and you preserve the omnipotent all good image of the celebrity you like. Projector. Whatever is unbearable in us, we put it onto somebody else. So if I am angry at you, I say you are angry at me. This is something very commonly seen in children. That they attribute their emotions to somebody else and accuse that person of having that emotion towards oneself. So if I want to kill you, I would say you want to kill me. So this is projection. Projective identification. In projection, what happens is, if I am angry at you, I accuse you of being angry at me, and I'm not lying. I sincerely believe that you are angry at me. This is not lying. This is not manipulating. This is an unconscious operation where I am consciously not aware that this is happening. I genuinely believe you are angry at me. So in my unconscious mind, I am angry at you, but it's unacceptable to me in some way, either because of reality or morality, that I am angry at you. It may be that a child may be angry at the parent, but unacceptable to the child. So the child says to the parent, you are angry at me. So I sincerely say you are angry at me. I am not lying. I genuinely believe you are angry at me. That's how it seems to me. So projection is I attribute my emotions, my intentions to somebody else. and I genuinely feel that person has those emotions or intentions towards me. However, if I am angry at you and I say you are angry at me, I believe you are angry at me, you don't feel angry at me. And you are actually surprised why I am saying what I am saying. Whereas in projective identification, if I am angry at you, I put my anger into you and I make you feel angry towards me. I don't believe that you are angry towards me. I don't know if you are angry or not angry towards me. I look at you as any normal person, but what I am doing is I am putting my anger into you and make you feel angry towards me. And this is a very complex defense. Nobody knows how it happens. But there is no doubt that it happens. If you are doing therapy, there is no way you can escape projective identification. The more psychotic the person is, the more fragile the person is, the more disintegration issues the person has, the less ego strength the person has, the more volatile affects the person has, the person will do projective identification and put emotions into you. And in the therapy room, out of nowhere, you will start feeling all these emotions of anger, guilt, shame, envy, and all sorts of things. And you will be surprised why you are feeling this. So this is where emotions are put by one person into another. How it is done, nobody knows the mechanism, but the fact that it happens is without any doubt. It has been verified hundreds and thousands of times by people who do therapy. And projective identification again happens in two ways. One is during the session itself, and second is what I call delayed projective identification. That some time passes after the session is over and then you start feeling those feelings or you start getting those visuals. So it's a very complex mechanism. In this mechanism, what the person is doing is the person wants to experience something, say anger. Suppose I want to experience my anger. I have anger towards you or towards somebody, doesn't matter, towards you. Let us say I have anger, but I don't have the capacity or the courage or the strength or readiness to experience that anger. So what I do is I put that anger into you. You experience it. I identify with you, and through that identification, I experience that anger. People who are passive aggressive use this mechanism very commonly. They will make you angry and thereby release their anger. And you will go crazy being around them. So passive aggressive people use this projective identification quite strongly. Children use it quite strongly because they may not have language and they want to communicate what is happening inside of them. And the only way they can do it is by making you feel what they are feeling. So before language develops, children use extensively projective identification to communicate their inner states to the parents. It is a form of communication before language is developed. It is also a form of communication even after language is developed when the emotions involved are too difficult to experience. It is also a cry for help and unconscious communication to somebody to please understand what I am going through and help me out. So projective identification and delayed projective identification. Somatization. Somatization is a defense where if the emotions are too strong and cannot be experienced, they are put into the body. So this is somatization of emotions. It is not a very good defense, but at times it is necessary because unpleasant emotions are so strong that there is no way out but to put them in the body. When we see situations for which there is no apparent medical reason, like nausea, frozen shoulder, allergies, asthma, psychological asthma I am referring to, eczema, skin problems, for which no medical reason can be found. Many sorts of pains for which no medical reason can be found. In such situations, chances that it is somatization at work is very high. So these are the defenses. The last three defenses, which I have put in green color, are defenses which are used by the ego usually in dreams. They are not so much used in waking state, they are used more in dreams and fantasies. The first defense is of, no, not the first defense, but one defense is of inversion. You see something upside down. For example, uh, in your dream, you see a situation where the building is upside down and the roads are above and the cars are moving to the, or sticking to the roads upside down. That kind of defense, which converts a normal situation into an upside down or left to right, is inversion. And this is done for certain reasons to hide the identity of something or communicate something in a coded way. So the defense of inversion is quite common in dreams. Role reversal. In the dream, the boss becomes the employee and the employee becomes the boss. This is the defense of role reversal. Again, it can be just to disguise something, hide something, or just for wish fulfillment. That somebody wishes this should be the case. Condensation. Condensation is a very complicated defense where two or more things are put together, and this is used very commonly in dreams. And in dream analysis, one of the most difficult things to decode is the work of condensation. For example, I know of two people X and Y in real life. X is honest and Y is brave. And in my dream, I see a person Z who is both honest and brave. So both these people have been put together in the form of a third person who I see in the dream, but who does not exist in the real world. Two people in the real world have been put together to create a personality, a person in my dream. And this is called the work of condensation. Now, this defense can be used again for a variety of purposes. One is to hide, to disguise, or the unconscious wants to say too much, and therefore it's like a zip file that everything is condensed together. Or there are layers upon meaning in something which is being communicated. So there may be a condensation of one event taken from the childhood, one from the young age, and one from the mature age, and all the three events are condensed in a way to create some story or plot of the dream. So this is the defense of condensation. These three last defenses that I have put in the green, inversion, role reversal, and condensation, usually are not used in the waking state, commonly used in dreams and fantasies. Thank you. Any questions, write to me at hvindia@gmail.com. In the next discussion, we'll take up some common psychological problems and the Freudian explanation of those, Freudian explanation on the causation of those psychological problems. Thank you.